Now to the fallout of former President Trump's lies about the election. Secretary of State Katie Hobbs says that she talked with the Justice Department yesterday about how the ongoing Republican-controlled election audit in Arizona's Maricopa County could be breaking federal law due to the handling of ballots. Meanwhile, Hobbs also says that she is receiving multiple death threats. She tweeted out yesterday, quote, "Earlier today, a man called my office saying I deserve to die and wanting to know what she is wearing so she'll be easy to get." It was one of at least 3 such threats today. Hobbs received a similar threat after the November election and received police protection. Now, earlier on this network, Hobbs reminded us that Arizona completed a hand recount of randomly selected precincts, and the county completed successful equipment tests and 2 independent audits. Joining us now is Grant Woods, who was elected to 2 terms as Arizona Attorney General. As a Republican, he is now a Democrat. And Jennifer Morrell, founder of the Elections Group and an expert in election audits, who recently visited the Arizona audit as part of a court agreement to allow outside observers. Great to have both of you with us on this very important subject. Grant, let's talk about these people conducting the audit. Who exactly are they? There are reports one of the people tallying votes is a former state lawmaker who was actually at the U.S. Capitol on the January 6th insurrection that day.
Oh, yeah. It's quite a collection. It's a lot of people who have dealt in conspiracy theories for a long time, and certainly since the election. It's certainly not an unbiased group. You got to realize, I think everybody knows that whether you're the Attorney General like I was or you're Secretary of State and you have something to do with the elections, you make sure that everybody who's involved follows proper procedure, they follow the law, that they're completely unbiased, and the chips fall where they may. These people they've got down there, there's some real nutcases down there. That's all I can tell you. And the guy you mentioned, yeah, he, by the way, he's counting his own ballot in a sense. He was an elector for Trump. So he lost, and they can't get over it. And they apparently they don't want to get over it. They want to try to gin something up so they can point to this so-called audit, which is kind of a kangaroo audit coming out of kangaroo court. And then they'll go to other states and say, see, it was probably inaccurate there as well. It's easy to make fun of them when they're looking for bamboo in the paper because some ballots were dropped in from China. And I'm all for that, but it's actually pretty serious because it's a real assault on our democracy.
Yeah. So, Jennifer, to Grant's point there about the people involved in this, they actually have the real ballots in their possession. And that's got to be concerning. I mean, tell us what you observed and what concerns you about the fact that, you know, as Grant was saying about these individuals, people who voted are actually now in charge and holding their own ballots.
Well, it's incredibly concerning for a number of reasons. But I think the most important thing to point out, as Grant said, was this election was already conducted and audited by people with years of knowledge and expertise, following the laws of Arizona, following best practices. That is certainly not happening here. We've seen missteps from day one, lack of accountability, just inconsistency with process and procedures. And certainly the forensic paper audit, as was just mentioned, was chasing down this idea that security is in the paper is absolutely ridiculous. Completely disregards all the guardrails, all the security mechanisms that are already in place. I mean, we have military and overseas voters currently who print out their own ballot on their own paper, on their own printer, and fold it however they want. That doesn't make it a suspicious ballot or an invalid ballot. The security and safety mechanisms are there. These folks clearly don't understand how that process works.
Yeah, that's a good point about the individuals printing out their own ballots, those that are serving overseas. Grant, the DOJ sent a letter to the president of the Arizona State Senate this week that says, quote, "We have a concern that Maricopa County election records, which are required by federal law to be retained and preserved, are no longer under the ultimate control of elections officials, are not being adequately safeguarded by contractors, and are at risk of damage or loss." What do you think the Justice Department should do at this point?
I think all of their concerns are in fact, true. And so I think they need to get involved. I think they need to come to Arizona and they need to monitor what's going on here, and they need to take whatever actions they need to take to either put a stop to this or to make them reform their ways, if that's even possible at this point in time. But I think it's time for the Justice Department to step in because, again, we've already had audits. We've already checked the ballots. We've already checked the machines. We've done everything over and over.
These people
went to court. They're over 60 in court. So this is the problem. I think it's time for the Justice Department to do what they do in terrible situations like this, and that's come in and enforce the law and enforce the Constitution.
So, Jennifer, ultimately, these ballots, they're at risk of getting damaged and destroyed, but there's also a greater risk of damage being done to the integrity of the elections in the state of Arizona and Maricopa County in particular. Yeah,
that's right. There's a reason, actually, we use technology to scan and count large quantities of ballots. Hand counting ballots is fraught to begin with. Humans are terrible at tedious, repetitive tasks, especially counting. So we use technology to do that, and then we test and we audit that technology to ensure it operates correctly. These 2.1 million ballots are being counted without the best practices clearly deviating from that. They're going to end up with 3 separate results. It's going to cause a lot of confusion for voters. It certainly is going to erode that trustworthiness that election officials are trying so hard to build in their procedures.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.